The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Most people go through life being used, outmaneuvered and overlooked, and they never know why. The 48 Laws of Power explains exactly how power works and how people silently use it against you. Let's fix that. Power is not just about politicians, billionaires or kings sitting on giant thrones. Power exists everywhere. In classrooms, offices, friendships, relationships, business meetings, social media, and even inside families. Every single day, people compete for attention, respect, influence, and control, often without saying a single word. And the strange thing is, the people who understand these invisible games usually rise faster than those who only work hard. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone less talented get promoted before everyone else? Or someone walk into a room and instantly command respect without even trying? That's not luck. Most of the time, they understand human psychology better than others. They understand power. One of the biggest ideas in this book is that human beings are emotional, insecure, and deeply driven by ego. People want to feel important. They want status. They want control. And once you understand that, you begin seeing the hidden patterns behind almost every social interaction. The scary part is that power games continue whether you choose to play or not. Many people think ignoring these dynamics makes them good or pure, but in reality it often makes them easy targets. While they stay honest and unaware, someone smarter quietly controls the narrative, manipulates perception, and gains influence behind the scenes. But this book is not just about manipulation. It's about awareness. It teaches you how to protect yourself from people who use charm, fear, praise, or emotional tactics to control others. Because once you understand how power works, you stop being naive. You stop reacting emotionally to everything. You begin reading people more carefully. And honestly, that changes everything. You start realizing that respect is rarely given automatically. Influence is built strategically. Silence can be more powerful than speaking too much. Confidence often matters more than intelligence. And perception, the way people see you, can completely shape your opportunities in life. The world has always rewarded people who understand human nature. The difference is that most people never study it. This book forces you to. Most people believe the world rewards honesty, kindness, and hard work equally. But the deeper you observe life, the more you realize something uncomfortable. Success is often controlled by perception, strategy, and emotional intelligence. That is the core philosophy behind. The book doesn't describe the world the way we wish it worked. It describes the world the way it actually works. At its center, the book teaches one brutal truth. Power is always being played. Every conversation, every friendship, every workplace, every social circle has hidden dynamics beneath the surface. Some people influence quietly, some dominate openly, some manipulate emotionally, and most people never even notice it happening. The reason this philosophy feels so shocking is because society trains people to think emotionally instead of strategically. We are told to always be completely open, completely honest, and completely trusting. But the reality is that not everyone operates with good intentions. Some people study weakness. Some people exploit emotions. Some people understand exactly how to control situations while appearing innocent on the outside. That's why the book constantly emphasizes emotional control. Emotional people are predictable. Predictable people are easier to manipulate. When anger controls your decisions, people can provoke you. When desperation controls you, people can use you. When insecurity controls you, people can dominate you. But when you remain calm, patient, and observant, you suddenly become much harder to control. Another important idea is that appearance often matters more than reality. People judge confidence before competence. They trust certainty more than confusion. A person who looks powerful, speaks carefully, and controls their emotions usually gains more influence than someone who is intelligent but uncertain. Human beings respond to perception first and truth second. And that's exactly why this book became so controversial. Some people see it as dangerous because it exposes uncomfortable truths about human behavior. Others see it as necessary knowledge because understanding manipulation helps you defend yourself from it. But the smartest way to read this book is not as a guide to becoming cruel. It's as a guide to becoming aware. Because once you understand how influence works, you stop moving through life blindly. You begin noticing hidden intentions, power struggles, and psychological games that most people completely miss. And once you see those patterns clearly, it becomes almost impossible to unsee them. One of the most dangerous weaknesses a person can have is emotional instability. The moment your emotions control you, other people can control you too. And that is one of the deepest lessons inside. Powerful people are not powerful because they never feel emotions. They are powerful because they don't let emotions make decisions for them. Think about how many lives get damaged in a single moment of anger. One emotional reaction can destroy relationships, careers, opportunities, and reputations that took years to build. That's why the book repeatedly warns against reacting impulsively. When someone can make you angry whenever they want, they already have influence over you. And honestly, most people are extremely easy to provoke. A little disrespect, criticism, jealousy, or humiliation instantly changes their behavior. They speak too much, reveal too much, or make reckless decisions just to protect their ego. But calm people operate differently. They observe first, they think before reacting, and because of that, they appear stronger, wiser, and more dangerous. Silence itself becomes a form of power. Have you ever noticed how the quietest person in the room often feels the most mysterious? That's because people naturally fear what they cannot fully read. When you constantly explain yourself, overshare your feelings, or react emotionally to everything, people quickly understand your weaknesses. But when you remain composed, people struggle to predict you. And unpredictability creates psychological power. Patience is another major form of emotional discipline. Most people destroy opportunities because they cannot wait. They rush success, force relationships, chase validation, and panic under pressure. But powerful people understand timing. They know that reacting too early can expose weakness. Sometimes waiting calmly is far more effective than fighting immediately. The book also explains that emotional control protects your reputation. The world watches how people behave under stress. Anyone can appear confident when life is easy. But pressure reveals character. If you collapse emotionally every time problems appear, people stop seeing you as reliable or strong. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless or cold-hearted. It means learning mastery over yourself. Because self-control creates clarity, and clarity allows better decisions. In many ways, the greatest battle in power is not against other people. It is against your own impulses. Anger, desperation, insecurity, ego, fear. These emotions quietly destroy more opportunities than lack of talent ever will. And the people who learn to master themselves usually become far more difficult to manipulate, intimidate, or defeat. One of the most overlooked truths about power is that people don't interact with your reality. They interact with the image they have of you in their mind. In the world described in C, reputation is not just important, it is everything. It can open doors you have never knocked on, and it can close opportunities you never even knew existed. That means your reputation often speaks before you do. Long before people meet you, they already form opinions based on what others say, how you present yourself, and even how you carry your energy. Once an image is formed, it becomes extremely powerful because people start filtering everything you do through that perception. This is why people who understand power are extremely careful about their image. They don't overshare. They don't act without thinking. They don't allow emotions or temporary situations to damage a long-term reputation. Instead, they shape how they are seen, sometimes by staying mysterious, sometimes by staying consistent, and sometimes by letting actions speak louder than words. In today's world, especially with social media, reputation moves faster than truth. A single moment can define how millions of people see you. That is why controlling your image is no longer optional. It is a form of protection, influence, and survival. Because once your reputation is strong, people trust you more easily, respect you more naturally, and follow you more willingly. Once your reputation is established, protecting it becomes just as important as building it. One careless action can erase years of effort in people's minds, because perception is often stronger than truth. At the same time, consistent behavior slowly rebuilds trust, even if misunderstandings or false narratives once existed. This is why powerful individuals understand the importance of long-term consistency over short-term emotional reactions. They know that over time, actions create reputation, and reputation creates influence. In many ways, reputation becomes a silent force that works for or against you even when you are not present. It shapes opportunities, relationships, and even the level of respect you receive from others. That is why understanding and managing reputation is not just strategy, it is survival in a world driven by perception. And once you realize this, you stop living randomly and start living more deliberately in everything you do, because in the end, perception often decides outcomes more than reality itself. This is power in its purest form. One of the most unsettling truths about human behavior is that most influence does not happen through force, but through psychology and subtle emotional control. In the world described in Bass, manipulation is not always loud or obvious. It is often quiet, polite, and even disguised as care. And the reason this works so effectively is because human beings are deeply driven by ego, insecurity, and the constant need to feel important in their environment. People use flattery, attention, and emotional validation to create subtle dependency, making others feel valued while slowly gaining influence over their decisions. What looks like kindness on the surface is often strategic communication designed to lower defenses and increase trust without raising suspicion. Many people never notice how their emotions are being guided because manipulation rarely feels like manipulation when it is done well. Instead, it feels like friendship, advice, love, or concern, which is exactly why it becomes so powerful and difficult to detect. The real skill, therefore, is not learning how to manipulate others, but learning how to read intentions before they affect your judgment. People reveal far more through tone, timing, silence, and inconsistency than through their actual words, if you learn to observe carefully. Once you understand these patterns, you stop reacting blindly and start recognizing when influence is being applied in real time. And that awareness is what separates people who are easily controlled from those who quietly stay ahead of every situation. Because in the end, influence is not about domination alone, but about understanding how human psychology quietly shapes every interaction we experience. Once you see this clearly, you realize that protection from manipulation does not come from fear, but from awareness, emotional discipline, and the ability to remain grounded even when others try to push your psychological buttons. People who lack this awareness often find themselves over-explaining, overreacting, or trusting too quickly, which are exactly the openings manipulators look for. But when you develop psychological clarity, you begin to notice patterns early, step back when needed, and choose responses instead of impulses. This shift is subtle but powerful because it changes you from someone who reacts to life into someone who understands life while it is happening. And in a world where perception and psychology shape almost everything, that understanding becomes one of the strongest forms of personal power you can ever develop. Leadership is often misunderstood. Most people think leadership is about being loud, dominant, or constantly proving authority. But in reality, true leadership is psychological. People follow those who make them feel certainty, direction, and emotional stability during chaos. And that is one of the most important lessons inside. Power is not just about controlling people. It is about understanding what makes people willingly trust your influence. Strong leaders understand that confidence is contagious. When a person speaks with clarity, controls emotions under pressure, and appears decisive, others naturally begin depending on them. Human beings are constantly searching for certainty in uncertain situations. That is why calm and composed individuals often rise into positions of influence even when they are not the smartest person in the room. At the same time, the book explains that authority must be maintained carefully. The moment a leader appears weak, desperate, or emotionally unstable, people slowly begin losing respect. This is why powerful leaders rarely reveal panic publicly. They understand that emotions spread quickly through groups. Fear creates fear. Confidence creates confidence. Another major lesson is that leadership is not about doing everything yourself. Truly powerful people know how to delegate responsibilities while keeping control of the larger vision. Weak leaders become exhausted trying to manage every small detail because they fear losing control. Strong leaders focus on strategy while allowing others to contribute their skills. The book also highlights the importance of bold decision-making. Most people hesitate because they fear failure or criticism, but hesitation often destroys authority faster than mistakes do. Even imperfect decisions create momentum, while constant indecision creates confusion and weakness. And perhaps the deepest lesson is that leadership is heavily connected to perception. People judge leaders not only by results, but by energy, communication, and emotional presence. Someone who constantly complains, seeks validation, or reacts emotionally appears less trustworthy over time. Meanwhile, someone who stays composed and focused naturally gains influence without forcing it. But this kind of power also comes with responsibility. Leadership can inspire people or manipulate them. It can create growth or fear depending on how it is used. That is why understanding power matters so much, because once you understand how influence works, you begin seeing why some people naturally command respect, while others constantly struggle to be taken seriously. And in many cases, the difference is not talent, it is emotional control, strategic thinking, and the ability to make others believe in your direction. One of the harshest realities about power is that not everyone around you wants to see you grow. Some people support you publicly while secretly competing with you privately. Others smile in front of you while waiting for the perfect moment to take advantage of your weakness. And that is why places so much importance on understanding enemies, rivalry, and hidden competition. Most people imagine enemies as obvious attackers, but real enemies are often much more subtle. They can appear as jealous friends, insecure co-workers, fake supporters, or people who quietly resent your progress. Human beings naturally compare themselves to others, and when someone feels threatened by your confidence, success, or influence, jealousy begins growing silently beneath the surface. This is why the book repeatedly warns against blind trust. Trusting everyone emotionally may sound noble, but in reality it often makes people careless. Powerful individuals stay aware of motives. They observe patterns, reactions, and behavior under pressure. Because the truth about people usually appears during moments of stress, competition, or opportunity. Another important lesson is that unresolved enemies can become dangerous over time. Small conflicts ignored for too long often grow into larger problems later. That is why strategic people deal with threats early before they gain momentum. Sometimes this means creating distance. Sometimes it means remaining cautious, and sometimes it simply means refusing to give certain people access to your vulnerabilities. The book also explains that emotional reactions make conflicts worse. Many people destroy themselves trying to prove a point, win arguments, or satisfy their ego. But powerful people understand that not every battle deserves energy. Some enemies become stronger when you react emotionally because attention itself gives them power. At the same time, the book highlights the importance of strategic alliances. No one gains influence completely alone. Smart people build relationships carefully, choosing connections based on trust, value, and long-term stability rather than temporary emotion. They understand that the people around you can either protect your growth or slowly destroy it. But perhaps the deepest lesson is this: competition never truly disappears from human society. Whether in business, careers, friendships, or social status, people constantly compare, compete, and seek influence. Ignoring this reality does not make it disappear. It only makes you less prepared for it. And once you begin understanding human jealousy, ego, and ambition more clearly, you stop moving through life naively. You become more observant, more careful, and far more difficult for others to manipulate or quietly undermine behind your back. One of the greatest forms of power is the ability to influence people through words. Long before physical strength or money-controlled societies, communication shaped leaders, movements, wars, and entire civilizations. And inside, communication is treated not just as conversation, but as a psychological weapon that can attract trust, create authority, and silently control perception. Most people speak too much without realizing that every unnecessary word reveals emotion, insecurity, and weakness. Powerful communicators understand something different. They know that silence can create mystery, and mystery creates attention. When a person constantly explains themselves, reacts emotionally, or talks endlessly to prove intelligence, people slowly lose interest and respect. But when someone speaks carefully and with purpose, their words naturally carry more weight. Tone is just as important as language itself. Human beings respond emotionally before logically. A calm voice during pressure creates confidence, controlled speech creates authority, and certainty, even more than knowledge, often makes people believable. That is why some individuals can walk into a room and instantly command attention without raising their voice. Their communication feels controlled, intentional, and emotionally stable. The book also explains the importance of persuasion. Powerful people rarely force others directly. Instead, they guide emotions, shape narratives, and make people feel like ideas were their own. This is why storytelling becomes such a powerful tool. Facts alone rarely move human beings emotionally. Stories do. A strong story creates imagination, emotion, and connection all at once. Another major lesson is learning the power of listening. Most people listen only to respond, not to understand. But strategic communicators observe carefully before speaking. They notice insecurity, desire, fear, ego, and emotional patterns hidden inside conversations. And once you understand what truly drives someone emotionally, influencing them becomes much easier. The modern world makes this even more important. Social media creators, public speakers, influencers, business leaders, and politicians all compete through communication. Attention itself has become a form of power. The people who can control attention often control influence as well, but communication can also destroy power if used carelessly. Speaking emotionally during anger, revealing too much too quickly, or constantly seeking validation weakens authority over time. People remember emotional instability more than clever arguments, and that is why mastering communication is not simply about becoming persuasive. It is about learning emotional control, understanding psychology, and knowing when words create influence and when silence creates even more. Because in many situations, the person who controls the conversation quietly controls the outcome as well. One of the most underestimated forms of power is timing. Many people ruin opportunities not because they lack talent, intelligence, or ambition, but because they act too early, too late, or too emotionally. And inside timing is treated almost like a hidden weapon, because in life, knowing when to move is often more important than simply moving fast. Most people live in constant urgency. They want instant success, instant respect, instant revenge, and instant results. But desperation creates weakness. When people become impatient, they stop thinking clearly. They force situations, reveal emotions, and make careless decisions just to satisfy temporary feelings. Powerful individuals operate differently. They understand that patience creates clarity, and clarity creates better outcomes. Think about how many mistakes happen because of emotional timing. Someone reacts in anger and destroys a relationship. Someone rushes into business without preparation and loses everything. Someone speaks too quickly during conflict and exposes insecurity. In many situations, the problem is not the action itself. The problem is the timing of the action. The book repeatedly emphasizes observing before reacting. Strategic people study the environment, the emotions of others, and the direction of situations before making important moves. They understand that every moment carries different levels of advantage and risk. Sometimes waiting quietly gives more power than immediate action ever could. Another important lesson is that timing controls perception. A well-timed statement can inspire people. A badly timed statement can destroy credibility. A calm reaction during chaos creates respect because it shows emotional discipline. Meanwhile, panic spreads weakness quickly. Human beings naturally trust people who remain composed while everyone else loses control. Patience also protects long-term success. Many people sabotage themselves because they cannot delay gratification. They chase short-term attention instead of long-term influence. But powerful individuals think differently. They are willing to move slowly if it means building something stronger and more stable over time. At the same time, timing does not mean endless waiting. Some people hide fear behind patience and miss opportunities completely. True strategic timing means understanding when to remain still and when to act decisively. It is balance, not hesitation. And perhaps that is why timing feels almost invisible to most people. It cannot always be measured or taught directly. It comes from observation, emotional control, and experience. But once you begin understanding it, you realize something important. Power is not always about force. Sometimes the person who waits calmly, watches carefully, and moves at exactly the right moment becomes the one who controls the entire situation without anyone noticing it happening. One of the most important things to understand about power is that it has a dark side. While it teaches strategy, awareness, and influence, it also exposes how dangerous the obsession with control can become when power is used without morality or self-awareness. Because the truth is, power can either sharpen a person's wisdom or slowly destroy their humanity, depending on how they handle it. Many people begin seeking power for understandable reasons. They want respect, security, success, or protection from being controlled by others. But over time, influence can become addictive. The more control someone gains, the more they fear losing it. And that fear often changes people completely. They become paranoid, manipulative, emotionally cold, and unable to trust anyone around them. This is one of the biggest dangers discussed indirectly throughout the book. Once someone starts viewing every relationship as a strategy and every interaction as a power game, genuine connection slowly disappears. People stop becoming human beings and start becoming tools, opportunities, or threats. And eventually, that mindset creates isolation. History is filled with powerful individuals who lost themselves because they became obsessed with dominance. Leaders who once inspired people eventually ruled through fear. Successful figures destroyed their own relationships because they trusted no one. Ambition slowly transformed into control, and control slowly transformed into paranoia. Another dark reality is that manipulation often works. That is what makes it dangerous. Charming people can deceive others. False confidence can attract followers. Emotional tactics can influence decisions. And because these methods are effective, many people become tempted to use them constantly instead of building authentic trust and respect. The book forces readers to confront an uncomfortable question. Just because you understand manipulation, does that mean you should use it? And that question matters because knowledge itself is neutral. The same understanding of psychology can protect people from manipulation or turn them into manipulators. This is why awareness and ethics must exist together. Understanding power without morality can become destructive not only for others, but also for yourself. Constantly trying to control everything creates stress, fear, and emotional emptiness over time. And perhaps the deepest lesson is this: true strength is not simply controlling others. Real strength is controlling yourself while still remaining human. Because anyone can become ruthless in pursuit of power, but very few people can gain influence without losing empathy, integrity, or emotional balance in the process. That balance is what separates wisdom from corruption, and without it, power eventually begins destroying the very person who chased it in the first place. One of the reasons feels so powerful is because its ideas are not just theories. History is filled with individuals who understood influence, perception, timing, and human psychology far better than the people around them. Some used that understanding to build empires, while others used it to dominate entire societies. And once you start studying these people closely, you begin realizing that power often follows predictable patterns. Take, for example, he understood the importance of confidence and image better than most leaders of his time. Even during difficult situations, he projected certainty and strength because he knew people naturally follow those who appear fearless. His presence alone inspired loyalty and fear at the same time, which gave him enormous influence over both soldiers and opponents. Another fascinating example is Caesar mastered political alliances, public image, and strategic communication. He understood how to gain support from ordinary people while also navigating dangerous power struggles among Rome's elite. But his story also reveals the dark side of power. The more influence he gained, the more threatened his enemies became, eventually leading to betrayal and assassination. Then there is, whose ideas about strategy and leadership influenced generations of rulers and thinkers. He believed leaders must understand human nature realistically rather than emotionally. His philosophy shocked many people because it exposed how politics often operates beneath the surface. In the modern world, power still follows many of the same principles. Figures like understand how attention itself creates influence. Whether people admire him or criticize him, he constantly controls public conversation, and controlling attention in today's world is a massive form of power. Even celebrities, influencers, and creators use psychological principles every day. They build strong personal brands, create emotional connection, maintain mystery, and shape perception carefully because they understand that influence is often emotional before logical. But these examples also reveal something important. Power itself is not automatically good or evil. It simply amplifies the personality of the person holding it. Some use influence to inspire innovation, leadership, and progress. Others use it for manipulation, fear, or control, and that is exactly why studying real-life examples matters so much. They help us see that the laws of power are not abstract ideas hidden inside books. They appear repeatedly throughout history, business, politics, entertainment, and modern society. The faces may change, but the psychology behind influence remains surprisingly similar across every generation. Many people assume that the ideas inside only apply to kings, politicians, or massive corporations. But the truth is, these laws operate everywhere in modern life, often in ways people never notice. The workplace, social media, friendships, dating, business, and even content creation are all deeply influenced by perception, psychology, and hidden power dynamics. In professional environments, technical skill alone is rarely enough. Two people can work equally hard, yet one rises faster because they understand communication, reputation, and influence better. People who remain calm under pressure, speak confidently, and build strong networks usually gain more opportunities over time. Meanwhile, those who constantly complain, react emotionally, or underestimate office politics often get ignored despite their talent. Social media has made these dynamics even more intense. Today, attention itself has become a form of currency. Influencers, creators, and public figures compete not only through content but through image, emotional connection, and perception. The people who understand storytelling, mystery, confidence, and audience psychology often grow faster than those who focus only on raw information. The book's lessons also appear in relationships and social circles. People naturally gravitate toward confidence, emotional stability, and strong presence. Someone who constantly seeks validation or appears desperate usually loses influence quickly. But individuals who respect themselves, maintain boundaries, and control emotions often appear more attractive and trustworthy without even trying. In business, the laws become even more visible. Companies compete for attention, loyalty, and dominance every single day. Branding, reputation, negotiation, and strategic partnerships all reflect the same psychological principles discussed throughout the book. Many successful entrepreneurs understand that perception can shape value just as much as the product itself. At the same time, modern life also proves why these laws must be used carefully. The internet rewards manipulation extremely quickly. Fake confidence, outrage, emotional drama, and manufactured controversy can attract attention faster than honesty or authenticity. And because of that, many people become trapped chasing influence instead of building real value. That is why awareness matters so much today. Understanding power helps you recognize manipulation, protect your reputation, and navigate social dynamics more intelligently. It teaches you how people shape narratives, influence emotions, and compete for attention in subtle ways. But perhaps the biggest modern lesson is this: power no longer belongs only to governments or rulers. In today's world, anyone with influence, attention, communication skills, or psychological understanding can shape opinions and affect large numbers of people. And because of that, understanding human nature has become more valuable now than ever before. After understanding all these ideas, one thing becomes very clear. It is not simply a book about manipulation, strategy, or control. At its core, it is a book about human nature. It forces people to confront uncomfortable truths about ambition, ego, influence, fear, respect, and the invisible games that quietly shape everyday life. Some people read this book and become obsessed with controlling others, but that completely misses the deeper lesson. The smartest readers do not use these ideas to become cruel or heartless. They use them to become aware. Because awareness changes the way you move through the world. It helps you recognize manipulation before it traps you. It teaches emotional discipline when others lose control. And it reminds you that perception, timing, communication, and self-control often shape life more than raw talent alone. At the same time, the book also warns us indirectly about the danger of becoming consumed by power itself. Chasing influence without balance can slowly destroy trust, peace, and genuine human connection. That is why wisdom matters more than manipulation. Real power is not screaming for attention or dominating every room. Real power is remaining calm under pressure, understanding people without hating them, and controlling yourself, even when emotions try to take over. And honestly, that may be the most valuable lesson of all. Because in a world filled with distraction, ego, comparison, and constant competition, the people who truly stand out are usually the ones who understand themselves first. They do not react blindly. They observe carefully. They think strategically. And they refuse to let emotions control their future. Once you begin noticing these patterns in real life, it becomes impossible to unsee them. You start understanding why some people naturally command respect, while others constantly struggle for validation. You realize why confidence changes opportunities, why silence can feel powerful, and why emotional control often separates leaders from followers. In many ways, the laws of power have always existed. The only difference is that most people move through life without recognizing them, but now you can. If you enjoyed this video and want more deep psychological breakdowns, powerful book summaries, and mindset-changing content, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Richmind Audiobook. And remember, the greatest advantage in life is not just understanding the world around you, but understanding the hidden forces that quietly shape human behavior every single day.